Hey everyone, how's it going? Long time no see. Welcome to today's episode of How Are You Getting Fucked? I'm your host, Koki Lumpur, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about employee rights again. Every time I read an article coming out of Singapore talking about employee rights and employment and how much employees are cared about by the authorities and the government, it pisses me just a little bit more than before. And right now, I'm just pissed off to this level. And in today's video, I'm here to tell you why. I'm going to be talking about this Agoda layoff that happened 3 weeks ago that was reported in the news. And it's not Agoda itself that I want to talk about in specific here, but they're a really good example of what pisses me the fuck off. And the long story short over here is that this is the same place which allows employees to be laid off or terminated without any reason whatsoever, right? As long as you give them their notice period and you pay them their notice period for whatever time that is stated in the contract, companies don't even need to give you a severance for you to leave. That's what my lawyer told me when I was laid off a few years ago in Singapore. Now, the whole thing is farce. If you ask anyone who grew up in this part of the world, especially if they're from Singapore, they will be happy to tell you that employees have no fucking rights. They're not cared about, you can lose your job, and really no one gives a flying fuck. Not even the government and the authorities that are supposed to protect the employees. Unless you're, of course, at the very bottom, like if you're earning like $1,000 or less or so. Like if you're some kind of construction worker who gets like injured because someone didn't do like the right things and in terms of work safety and all that, yeah, you're probably protected there. But for the bulk of the population working in like the middle class, classic office white collar kind of job, there's really no rights. And this is not my opinion. This is a fact that is known by the entire population of not just Singapore, but a lot of surrounding countries in Southeast Asia as well as what the lawyers will tell you, like the way that my lawyer did. Now, what pisses me off is that in this article it says Agoda axes 50 Singapore staff, denies it warned affected staff against reporting to government agencies. So what happened over here is that Agoda is an online travel website, kind of like booking.com or kayak or whatever. There's a lot of these different websites out there where you can book like hotels and flights. So Agoda decided to lay off 50 people, mostly in customer service, from what I understand in this article. And as part of this severance notice agreement that they sent out to the employees, which someone over here, some kind of whistleblower, sent over to this news agency, they mentioned in this severance agreement that if for some reason you decide to report or have any mediation requests, claims, proceedings, blah, 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 if you report this to the authorities, like your tripartite Alliance for Dispute Management, which is one of those organizations that is prevalent in Singapore that's supposed to protect you. But really, what it is, in my opinion, is it's a lot of drama, it's a lot of acting, and in reality, they don't give a flying fuck about employees, once again. And this is speaking from personal experience. This is speaking from the experience that I've heard from other people. I've tried to encourage people to talk to these authorities when they're having trouble at their job. For example, the person that I'm seeing, when she had trouble with this Taiwanese asshole boss named David, and a few months ago at her previous job, like people have reached out to these tripartite alliance dispute management people, and what they basically tell you is that is there any way that you could actually like just resolve that problem yourself by just talking maybe with your boss or HR? Have you ever tried that yet? Maybe you gotta try all these different things before we decide to take some sort of action. And when you ask them what kind of action they want to take, they're like, maybe we can give your office a visit, or maybe we can give your HR a phone call and talk to them about how ridiculous these policies are and how badly your boss is behaving. Aren't going to do shit for as long as people are not fined or going to prison. And this is just this really rich part of this whole equation, right? Because Singapore is known, especially to people outside of the country, for these really strict laws. You can't have chewing gum. They're cracking down on vaping. If you're caught with drugs, whether you're in possession of them or you're selling them, well, you're gonna die because they're gonna give you a death sentence. But when it comes to actual crimes like, laying people off or whatever, I mean, I'm not even expecting a prison sentence here for any executives because that's not even been done in the most corrupt place on earth, as a lot of people would know it, America. They're not even given a fine, which is what Singapore is known for. You get a fine for speeding, you get a fine for possessing vapes, right? And before anyone says that, you're just salty because you vape. I've never smoked in my life. I'm just pointing out what I see with my own two eyes. You're fined for driving in the bus lane, you're fined for this, that, and the other, you're fined for littering, blah, blah, blah. But you know what you're not fined for? You're not fined for laying people off or terminating them without any cause whatsoever because you paid them their severance. Oh, you gave them their 1 month notice and you're paying them for 1 month. And despite there not being any reason whatsoever that we're terminating your contract, well, the law says that that's what we can do. As Louis Rossmann once said in his videos, this is one thing that really echoes in my mind over and over again, and it has for the last 10 years. Louis Rossmann is a MacBook repair technician, probably the #1 MacBook repair technician in the world at this point. And he once had a friend or mentor named Dino, and this is where that saying comes from. If you want to be the bitch, be the whole bitch. If you're going to try to have not any employee rights for people, you're not going to protect them, fucking say so, right? There's no harm in employees not having any rights. There's plenty of countries that do that, like America, for example. Everyone knows in America, employees can get fucked, right? You can get fired for no reason. You can get fired without notice. That's completely legal in some states. You can get fired for this, that, and the other, and there's no kind of compensation or any entitlement whatsoever that you're entitled to. But at least they're honest over there, right? They don't have any employee rights. They're not trying to cover it up, right? They're being the whole bitch. But in this case over here, let's continue with this article for just a moment. So the long story short is, as part of this severance agreement from Agoda to the employees who got laid off, if they were to report any of these, whatever they want to report, I guess. I don't know what you would report over here because it sounds like they're giving you a severance anyway, right? If you report or talk to the Ministry of Manpower, blah, 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 that would result in individuals, quote unquote, ceasing to be entitled to severance benefits. So I'm not really sure what they would complain about because, again, for anyone who's either born and raised in this part of the world or even has lived here long enough as an immigrant holding a work visa, you would know that there's no real consequences for companies doing stuff like this. I mean, they can't even dish out a fine that's over 6 figures for companies that leak their customer data, right? And here they are talking about all this PDPA and blah 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 blah, Personal Detail Protection Act. I think that's what it stands for. While giving them a fucking slap on the wrist when they leak out all their customer records for the world and all the scammers to pick up. Completely fine. So I don't know what you would report over here, but if you did that, you apparently would not get your severance. And then 3 days later, there's this other article published also by their lovely national mouthpiece, CNA over here, which says, Agoda apologizes for inappropriate severance clauses, blah, 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 will work with labor movement to support retrenched employees. Now, it says over here that this comes after discussions with the Ministry of Manpower. Okay, so this is all a smoke screen, right? For anyone who can't see it, this is why I'm making this video. This is all smoke screen. So what if all these different acronyms decided to speak with Agoda about their inappropriate clauses in their severance agreements? What's going to come out of that? What would come out of that in the first place if employees were to talk with these people? Like Agoda, as far as I understand in the first article over here, would be paying a severance. They seem to have, be given notice period according to whatever contracts and whatnot. They seem to be doing what basically all companies do when it comes to laying people off and terminating them. Right? Unless there's something really illegal that we're not seeing, that's not being reported, I don't see anything wrong on the surface over here. And keep in mind, I'm not a legal advisor. This is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a guy who's been laid off far too many times in my fucking career across different countries, and I've seen how the legal systems work in places like the European Union, where a lot of employees are actually fucking protected, in countries like Germany, all the way to places like Singapore, which arguably has worse employee rights than America. But the only reason why people don't know that is because in America, everyone's just happy to shit on reality. That's the reality that they live in. But in Singapore, you have all these mouthpieces, right? State-owned, who publish feel-good articles like this one. Oh, they apologize because they were sternly talked to by these different alphabet agencies. And I think it actually says that they were, in a strongly worded statement, that they were appalled by these agreements. That's what made Agoda apologize. But have you ever thought about what the real implications of any of this was? Even if they didn't apologize, what are employees gonna do? What are they gonna report these people for? What are these various alphabet agencies that allegedly uphold employee rights for most of society gonna do for these employees reporting the company? I'm not really a gambling man, but my bet is absolutely nothing, based on, again, personal experience and also hearing too many different experiences from everyone that I've kind of known in my social circle. Like I'm usually the guy who tries to give people the balls to actually do stuff like that, because I've encountered too many people who are like, well, my employer is really nasty and they're trying to get rid of me, and I guess the best option that I have is to just find another job, hopefully, and move on. And I'm the guy who's like, well, you did nothing wrong. You should start documenting all this shit. You should start reporting your nasty boss to HR. You should start looking outside to see if there's some kind of like government agency or whatever, or some kind of legal advisor or lawyer that you can consult in order to make your situation better. Because you're not gonna do anyone a favor by running away from the situation and leaving the bully to bully the next person. Because if everyone in society does that, guess what happens? The bully has no implications whatsoever. They're going to keep doing whatever it is that they're doing for the foreseeable future until the end of time. That's what's going to happen. So this is bullshit, in my opinion. This does nothing. There's no mention of any fines. There's no mention of consequences. It's just what they did is just inappropriate. These different alphabet agencies disagree with what they say in their severance agreement. But there's no. You notice if you read these articles that there's no like actual agreement or even examples of what would happen if a company were to continue to disobey the law. Because if you read other articles, other topics like things like driving, for example, and vaping, I think that those are the two big topics that everyone knows about. You'll see these same articles written by these same mouthpieces talk about like, oh, if you don't stop speeding, if you don't stop vaping, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, look at all these other people whom they have fined, and you don't want to get a fine just like them, do you? I don't see any of this in any of the articles that I've read covering these employee rights and how well employees are protected. And again, if you want to be the bitch, be the whole bitch. If you don't want to give employees rights and you don't want to protect them, if you want to have laws that protect employees on paper, but in reality, none of those things would really uphold in court, or if those things even upheld themselves in court, your system makes it way too expensive that it's not worth it for most of the population to sue their employer for whatever inappropriate behavior that they've done upon those employees. Don't say that you're protecting employees. Don't talk about how you're trying to offer employees flexible working arrangements or how you're trying to give them more maternity leave to make the entire world and try to gaslight your own population to believe that you're doing something that you care, because you fucking don't. That's it for today, and hope you learned something. See you all in the next video. Goodbye.